The other thing is, I was talking to my wife about this the other day. I'm a unicorn, bro. Shout out to my guy Swoop. I am a unicorn.
Shout out Swoop.
You know what I mean? Like, we live our dreams. Like, if it's something we want to do, we do it. At that time, I wasn't living my dream. And most of the people around me weren't living their dreams. So we were, it's like once Friday hit, especially if it's payday, all you want to do is drink away your sorrows.
Right.
And so it was a cycle that I went through week in, week out.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so after, as a result of my DUI, my license was suspended for a year. Could only drive to work. And if I wanted to go to church, I could do that. Anything else, I have to get transportation. So, like, I'm in Aurora, so I'm in the middle of nowhere. So, like, anytime I want to do something social, I got to hit somebody up like, yo, bro, can you scoop me and then drop me off at the end of the night? So I felt too embarrassed, to call. So I started isolating myself. I started feeling like a burden to my family, to my friends. And then I started going through suicidal ideation again, where I was like, well, and this is more common than people think, but like suicidal ideation is like when you start to question, like, well, why am I even alive?
Right.
What would life be like if I wasn't here anymore?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, I was going through all of this. And then like later on that year, my sister and I, we had moved to Shaker. We were renting a house and we decided to host Thanksgiving that year. This is a year after my DUI. And so, we invited the family over. Everybody's there. We had great dinner. And as soon as dinner was over, I started feeling my heartbeat going like this. And I started feeling claustrophobic. And I immediately ran upstairs to my bedroom to be by myself. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, man, this is my family. I've been around them my entire life. I was experiencing my first panic attack. So I was dealing with anxiety.
How old were you?
This was 2014, so I was 34, I believe, or 24. Yeah, somewhere around there. I was in my mid-20s. And I knew something was wrong, like something was seriously wrong. And, one of my fraternity brothers, who was a psychologist, also could sense something was wrong since the DUI. And, he pulled up on me. We grabbed some dinner, and he was like, bro, have you ever thought about therapy? Have you ever considered talking to somebody about your issues or whatever? I had thought about it, but I was like, man, I don't know any black people that go to therapy. It's primarily white folks that do it. So I was like, well, I guess it's not for me. And so once he was like, why don't you give it a try? I found my therapist through my employer. By this time, I was back at PNC, the bank I was working at. Found my therapist, and I was clinically diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety. And that's where the healing started to begin from that point on.
Yeah. How was that? How was that initial first session? You know what I'm saying? When you reflect on having that first session, how was that for you?
I mean, to be honest, I don't totally remember, but what I can tell you as far as who I was then, I was a shell of who I am now. A shell. Like, I was a guy, I was, how they say, like, you can function. Like, that's the thing with depression. You can mask it. You can mask it with smiles. You can, it's not like anything physical, right? Like, it's within. It's internal. So I was really good at shielding how I was feeling. And I would just like, I had like no emotion. I was numb. I was a shell of myself. You know what I mean? And so, we had our consultation, and then he came back with the diagnosis. And then within me, I just decided I want to be in tune with who I really am again. Because at this point, it was nothing for me to like spend a whole day on the couch. Not get up.
Yeah, man. That's again, man. I resonate with so much of what you're saying, man. Listen, over 10 years ago, around the corner from where we are today, I got a DUI. Matter of fact, it was We were watching I think it was a Floyd fight, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
At this time, I'm drinking Pete Ciroc, which I never
Lord.
fuck with today, ever again.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those regular nights. We
Yeah.
partying, we kicking it, drinking at my homeboy spot. We go to the club, we drinking there, we kicking it there. And I remember my homeboy, mind you, I was drinking Ciroc the whole night. My homeboy ordered me a shot of Jack. That's the last thing I remember. Next thing you know, I left. My homeboy said that I left, and my guy called me like, "Where you at? You all right?" And I'm like, "Y'all ain't come with me." They're like, "Man, if you don't come back and get us," I come back, pull back around, come back, and I'm pulling up to the club parking lot. Next thing you know, I go up a one way and try to pull into the parking lot.
Yeah.
Right there, the police stopped me right there in that spot. End up getting a DUI. Had to go to like the Oriental House for 3 days.
Oh yeah. I did the 3 days in the hotel.
Three days in the Oriental House and 3 days in the Glenwood jail. Terrible.
Oh, man. So you did the 3 days. So I went through the interview. Like they asked, you want to do 3 days in jail? You want to do the intervention program? I was like, man, take me to the intervention program.
I blew like double, damn near triple over. So it was like, bro, you're not getting you got 6 days. It's either you take these 6 days or you gotta do 30 days in the county. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do these 6. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it was terrible. But now looking back on it though, man, like, bro, I was masking my feelings with just partying and kicking and just moving and really just avoiding my feelings and avoiding, what I was experiencing. When I reflect back on that time, I was 21, 22 years old. I was in and out of college. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was facing the external pressures of just like figuring it out, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Living in my sister's basement at the time and just trying to figure it out and not really having a lot of like positive outlets, to really be able to discuss what I was experiencing, let alone, really being able to understand what I was experiencing. I didn't have any of that. I didn't have the tools. So I did what everybody else was around me was doing, which was coping, you know what I'm saying, to deal with the shit that I was dealing with. But the stuff that you're saying, I know exactly what you're saying because it's so normalized.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm really trying to get to is that like, these are normal things.
Normal behaviors.
Normal behaviors that a lot of us, experience on a day-to-day basis, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, and the thing about it is that really is, and obviously we'll get to, what PDLB stands for. What we do. That's really one of the main reasons why I started doing this work, because once I started therapy, I literally did start peeling back the layers of who I really am, who I was. And I learned more positive, healthy ways to cope and to live with depression and anxiety. There's no cure for it.
Right.
So I still have depression. I still have certain days where I'm like, I'm going through it, but instead of engaging in toxic behavior to my health, I'm now equipped with the tools to do something positive.
Correct.
You know what I mean? To cope with my emotions.
Yeah. When you reflect back on it, man, was there anybody else in your family, man, that dealt with some mental health stuff as well that you look back and like, you know what, I wasn't alone in this as well, and there was other people around me, not just your homeboys and stuff, but a lot of times, man, as black families, man, we got other people struggling in silence around us as well. And maybe, as we continue to educate ourselves, we can kind of look back and empathize with them. Did you have to experience any of that?
Yeah, I mean, my sister definitely dealt with depression. She still deals with depression. But she's in healthcare, so she definitely was taking care of herself.
Take to it, yeah.
But she was going through it, and then I think my grandfather, again, on my dad's side, I think he dealt with it, but he wasn't going to therapy. He wasn't diagnosed. Yeah. It's just you can kind of tell. Yeah, like after, because most of the time or most of my life, up to his passing, like. My grandmother, his wife, she passed when I was 5. So, like, most of my life, he was, like, by himself. So, a lot of it could have been that, feeling lonely, times he would be crying. I've seen him cry, like stuff like that. So I feel like he also suffered from depression, but I don't know if that was set on by trauma or something like genetic. If he just had it.
When you first started going to therapy, what were some of the like the first things that you really started to realize? Okay, I got to work on myself regarding this. Was it the alcohol or was it something?
Yeah, it was definitely the alcohol. I mean, and then the other thing is like the negative self-talk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like man, you ain't shit.
Yeah.
You overweight.
Right.
Like you got 2 degrees, no job. Like, you're a loser. You living with your parents, like all the negative self-talk. That was one of the biggest hurdles for me,
man,
that I had to work through. You know what I mean? And to like, cause really the goal of fighting through depression or mental illness, at least for me, from my perspective, is to love yourself.
Yeah, and accept where you are.
And accept where you are, accept yourself, flaws and all. And what a lot of times what gets us to engage in toxic behavior is because we don't love ourselves.
Right.
We look in the mirror and we don't see shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so for me, I had to change what I saw in the mirror in order for me to start doing things differently. And so like for me, as is with everything, like one of my biggest coping mechanisms is music.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I'm making music or listening to music, you know what I mean? And so of course, when you got songs like Pursuit of Happiness and when Kid Cudi dropped Man on the Moon 1, man, that got me through some tough times.
Yeah.
And then eventually I started writing about my experience, and I wrote this one song about my depression called Layers. And, I ended up, I got hit up. At this time, my one former roommate from New York, Will, was working for Vice. And he hit me up. He was like, bro, you have any songs about depression? I had literally just written this song,
mm-hmm.
Layers. And I sent him the song. I did an interview with Vice. And the song went viral. This is 2016. So at this point, I'm starting to engage in coping skills. I think the other thing that kind of helped me was like I'm a big self-help guy.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of motivational videos. I'm big on Les Brown.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm big on Wayne Dyer. Rest in peace. Like I read the book Manifest Your Destiny, and that changed my life. Like I was able to kind of pull myself up from watching some of these videos. But I wrote the song went viral. And that's what got like basically kind of like a light bulb went off. It's like there's not, because at that time there wasn't really a lot of rappers like dude, there was rappers talking about depression since like the beginning.
Yeah.
But as far as talking about therapy and going to therapy, nobody at that time was really talking about that.
Yeah, man. No, it's interesting you say that, man, because when I really reflect back on it, man, when I go back and listen to it. A lot of artists be going through it, man. They be dealing with so much. Like even when we talk about, cats like Hove, I think it was on Watch the Throne.
Yeah.
Oh man, that album is very dark. You know what I'm saying? He was, really. I think he said he was depressed maybe 4 or 5 different times.
Yeah.
Throughout that album, and these are the things that we overlook.
Welcome to the Jungle. That jungle.
Yes. Oh man, it's dark.
Yeah.
It is dark. He pouring out his soul, man.
Yeah.